Ceruto, try it again. Fans on the feet, 6,000 in attendance. The payoff is flied into right field, going back at the warning track, at the wall. It's gone! Go ahead, 3-run home run for the senior. Peter Ceruto has given the Indiana Hoosiers the lead.
Welcome to Talking Hoosier Baseball. We are recording this on Thursday, March 7th, 2024. I am Carl James, joined by Josh Bennett, Chris Feeney, and Cassidy Palmer. The Indiana University baseball team dropped out of the D1 baseball top 25 after a 1-2 weekend at the Frisco Classic in Texas. They sandwiched a pair of run rule losses to number 16 Alabama and Arizona around a win against number 25 Dallas Baptist, who won the Frisco Classic belt thanks to a head-to-head tiebreaker over Alabama from the game that they won on Sunday. In the two 7-inning losses, the Hoosiers only scored 1 run. In the win, the Hoosiers came back from down 6-1 to defeat Dallas Baptist by a score of 9-7. The Hoosiers returned to Bloomington and defeated the North Kentucky Norse by a score of 11-5 Wednesday evening. This brings the Hoosiers to 8-4 on the season, ahead of a series with national interest as Sunbelt contender Troy comes to the BART for a weekend series starting tomorrow, at least as scheduled. All right. Well, Josh, it was a weird weekend in Frisco. Let's hear your take on things.
Weird is a pretty good way to put it, Carl. Going into Friday, playing a ranked Alabama team that was undefeated against Ben Hess, who's 3-0 and just absolutely probably one of the best maybe the best arm we'll see all season. The Duke kid was really good as well. But you knew the cards were kind of stacked against you, and you had another ranked team coming up later in the week. And, you get down 5-0 before you even get to step to the plate. So you kind of manage the game a little bit differently in that scenario because you don't want to just blow your weekend up in a game that you're really going to have a hard time coming back on. And then Saturday, down 5 runs, going into the 6th against another ranked undefeated team, Dallas Baptist. And you score 8 runs, come back win. You get your second win over a ranked team in 4 tries, so 2-2 against ranked teams on the season. I think looking at the schedule, you'd probably think, we'd take that for sure. And then Saturday, down 5 runs, going into the Sunday. It looked bad, but it was really just 1 inning, right? It was that 10-run fourth. It would have been a 2-1 game. Aside from that, we know that with what we've seen from the pitching right now, they're trying to figure that out. They're down some guys that they counted on having. But, we're going to have to outslug teams and score runs on Sunday to win consistently. That's just the nature of the beast. We're down Grable, Sennard, Tyrai, and Bonnert. Those are guys they counted on eating up big innings, and they don't have that. So they've been trying to figure that out. It's early in the season, still trying to figure things out. But hey, good potential. 2-2 against ranked, like I said. That's my take from what I'm seeing on the field, watching the team. But Cass, what are the numbers saying?
Yeah, so I actually focused more on the offense than I did the pitching this week because, those big innings, there's no other word, those big innings sucked. But I was more concerned with the bats only putting up 1 run across those 2 games. Because doesn't matter what the pitching staff does, 1 run in a single game is typically not going to be enough to win it. And I was particularly focused on runners in scoring position with fewer than 2 outs. And so I laid it all out, both just straight up counts of at bats and plate appearances, and then some batting average and what I call the productive rate. Did you do something good? That could be a walk, a hit by pitch, it could be an RBI ground out, a sacrifice. Was it something good? And oh boy, is there a difference between the wins and the losses so far this year. On average, in wins, this team has 8 at bats with runners in scoring position and fewer than 2 outs. In losses, that drops to 3. That's not even as much as this team can slug home runs, that's still not going to be a winning recipe. And those number of hits average about 3.5 in those situations, with runners in scoring position and fewer than 2 outs in those wins. 0.5 hits in the losses. That's just not gonna win you games. Batting .446 with runners in scoring position and 2 outs in wins, batting .167 in losses. And all of that comes in the Purdue Fort Wayne game. It is 0 for Duke, Bama, and Arizona. And going even further, the Arizona game, there was 1 at bat, 1 plate appearance too. One plate appearance with a runner in scoring position and fewer than 2 outs. I thought it'd be Bama as the lowest. No, that we had 2 there. So the big thing with this team is getting those runners on, because if we can get them on, we can score them. That's held true in all of the wins. And in the losses, we haven't gotten the guys in scoring position with fewer than 2 outs. I think that is, I know that's kind of an obvious thing of, yes, get runners in scoring position on with fewer than 2 outs, and things are going to go well. But that's generally how it's got to be. Because again, when we get them on, we largely might not always score them, but we're being productive. We're getting hits, we're getting walks, we're getting sac flies. So I think that's really the big thing to watch with this team is, can we get those runners on? Because if we do, we can score them. So that was the big thing I was looking at this week. Now Carl's gonna talk about the Northern Kentucky game from yesterday.
Yeah, so Hoosiers got a bit of a turnaround. So as I said before, won the game 11-5. There was a bit of news right off the bat, which is that Seth Bennis, who was scheduled to start the game and had started the prior 2 midweek games with a 1 and 2 inning performance in those, was scratched very late. Had been announced as the starter, as the expected starter, but was not in the starting lineup. In his post-game, coach said that Seth Bennis woke up with some arm tightness. He is coming off of Tommy John, so they were just being very cautious, decided not to throw him. And they had already decided to have Ethan Phillips pitch in the game. And since he had already started 3 games, it kind of made sense to just go ahead and have him open the game. The reason that is that they've not been happy with how well Ethan Phillips has done after he gets through the first time through the order. He's been doing really well first time through the order, but struggling a bit after that. So, but at the same time, they do feel that he is capable of throwing more than to 9 batters a week. So right now what they're doing is splitting up his work so that it's at 2 different times in the week. And their hope is to eventually get him strong enough to where he will be able to once again start a game and hopefully go multiple times through the order. That is still the long-term goal. But for this game in particular, basically they decided to roll out what they kind of call the A pitchers. So Ryan Kraft, Julian Tangini were in the mix, and were able to keep what as their goal is to keep a team under 6 runs. And keep in mind, this Northern Kentucky team had just gotten done taking a road SEC series, so this team can hit, and they've got some sluggers. So holding them to 5 runs was not exactly an easy feat. Offensively, a lot of good things happened. That 5-run first inning, and to Cass's point, this team hadn't done anything to a starter in quite a while. Those first 5 innings, going all the way back to Purdue Fort Wayne, were pretty bad. So to see this team jump right out the gate, score 5 runs, get on the board first, allow the pitchers to breathe a little bit when they're out there was, I think, very helpful. Some highlights were Andrew Wiggins, pinch hit for Burkell, and got a home run. For the first time in a long time, somebody actually tried to throw a strike to Wiggins. That was pretty impressive. But I guess he just demonstrated why you don't want to do that. So Jake Stadler, catcher, was coming off of illness that had him sidelined on Saturday, and he hit a home run in the game. So those were 2 big highlights. And then Brock Tibbetts, 4 singles. He got 4 for 4. Just got a hit every time he came to the plate. So good solid game across the way for the team. A good bounce back. Just a chance to feel a little bit better about things before hosting Troy. So not the most pleasant week overall, but as we do every week, we do hand out some hardware. Chris, what are these red belts going to look like?
Come on, Carl. We've given out red belts on weeks where we didn't have a top 25 win. We are certainly going to give them out when we have one. All right. Just to mention real quick, I thought it was really nice to hear the quote from Coach when he went out there on Saturday and he brought Ty in. And he basically told the team, we're going with Ty. We're going to have to come back and win this game. I really thought that was a big moment. I think he showed a lot of belief in his team. And when I read that, I think it was Mason had interviewed Coach because he was out there. Mason Williams, right? Isn't it? He was out there in Texas and reading that quote. Like, I don't care how you feel right now. He's just talking to the guys on the mound. I'm bringing in Ty, and you're going to have to just figure this thing out because we're going for it anyway. And they got it, which was wild on Saturday. Considering how Sunday went, it's a good thing we did get Saturday. But yes, win or lose, we wear red belts. So for the offensive red belt award, the Alex Dickerson, you just mentioned Brock's great day against the Norse, against the Northern Kentucky team. He had already won the red belt. It was already his, obviously, for the 3-hit game, 4 RBIs against Dallas Baptist. He also scored a run in that game. That triple, that's big time stuff. That's a game you remember. That's the Brock Tibbetts triple game, right? That's the Didalo in the rain game, or whatever you want to do. The Brock Tibbetts triple game. And hearing Ben Haller's call, I was straight radio for Friday and Saturday, and he really, really great call. We sent it out on Twitter on the account. He really nailed the emotion of the moment. Because honestly, that could have been another run rule, right? What was it? It was 6-1 in the 5th. That thing goes south. It could have been 11-1 by the 7th, 8th, right? So not only did we not get run ruled for the 3rd one, but we won the game. And a big reason we won the game was Ty Bothwell. And Ty Bothwell gets the pitching red belt, the Joey Donato red belt. He threw 72 pitches. He did give up the 3 runs, 2 earned. But, 4 2/3, again, just like the part 2 of Saturday, like he did with Connor other games. He really stepped up. Guys were on base. It's not like he was just whipping out perfect innings here. He was wiggling in and out of trouble, doing his little Johnny Franco imitation, for old Mets fans can remember Johnny Franco. But Ty really stepped up. I mean, it was a big game, right? So why wouldn't Ty have pitched well? I don't know why we question it still. He is big game Ty. So he gets the pitching red belt. Now, for defense, I know Carl had eyes on it because he had the D1 broadcast, so it's not my pick. And anyway, you can't really give a red belt to 2 people. But I got to tell you that Hayden Carlson, Tyler Cerny double play to end the game was gold. It's not a red belt, right? Because it's 2 people or whatever the case. I'm sure There had to have been a nice catch at the end of it too. But that DP had me thinking of Lloyd against Texas A&M when we needed that big double play to clinch that game. So I'm glad the defense really stepped up behind Ty, to wrap it up. But Carl, what'd you think for the Tony Butler Award with your eyes on all these games?
Well, you know what? It's one of those things. I really had a hard time like coming up with something that just really popped. So I'm actually going to kind of take a different tack on this and then just really talk about just the guy we don't think about because he's just getting the job done, and that's Carter Matheson. Carter Matheson has been covering ground in center field, not doing anything flashy, but you know what? You get what seems like a shallow infield pop up. He seems to be there to collect it. He's getting to balls you think he should get to. We just haven't really thought much about center field. And if we can remember, Carter struggled in the outfield when he was doing corner outfield last year, to the point that, that's kind of why he ended up spending most of his time at DH. But it's been a huge focus for this team to get him really in the mix defensively. And he hasn't committed an error. He's covering a ton of ground. He's tracking balls, and he's doing his job. And he did that again this weekend. So I'm giving the red belt to Carter Matheson.
All right. Thanks for having eyes on it, Carl. So Carter Matheson gets the Tony Butler Defensive Award. And just to go off what Carl said, I did not have any belief that we were going to see how good he has been out there, right? I mean, Carl kind of sugarcoated a little bit that the man lost his job last year because he had a rough time in the outfield, right? Basically lost his job. And to see how much better he is in center than he is in that corner spot, really, absolutely right, Carl. I agree 100%. And I like being wrong, right? I was wrong. I didn't think he was going to be a great center fielder, but he is. And it makes it even harder to get All-American, or this huge prospect like Wiggins not even on the field. Because you got Mitchell and you got Devin, who's not going anywhere. And now with Carter in center, I think that's a really good pick, Carl. Thanks for doing that. So for this week, it's Brock Tibbetts for offensive, Ty Bothwell for the Joey Donato, and then Carter Matheson for the Tony Butler Award. I will be able to put some eyes on these games this weekend because they're at the Bart. We got a 3-gamer. We don't know if it's a 3-dayer with some wet weather coming Friday, but Josh is going to give us a little preview for Troy. They're coming in to play us for the weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And you're right. We don't know what that schedule is going to be. I didn't even bother checking the weather because this time of year, you just don't know what it's going to be doing in Indiana. But yeah, there might be some flex. Hopefully we get 3 in. But yeah, we have Troy in for the weekend. They're in the Sun Belt Conference with Coastal Carolina, who we kicked off the season with. They're 10-4 so far, but they have not played a very good schedule at all. The only game that they've played against a decent opponent was the Alabama team that we played last weekend, and they lost at Tuscaloosa last night, 7-8. So they made a game of it, even though it was a midweek. But hitting wise, led by the top 3 guys, all seniors. Ethan Cavanaugh is the second baseman, batting .453 with 24 hits. Cole Myers is a center fielder. He leads the team in home runs with 6 and has 9 stolen bases. And Will Butcher, the first baseman, has 26 RBI. Like I said, they're all seniors. 1, 2, and 3 in this order are all batting .390 plus. So that's going to be something to look at, keeping those guys. They're very top heavy. So that'll be a tough task for the pitchers to keep them under check. Pitching wise, Grayson Stewart, a right-hand junior. He was all conference, Sun Belt Conference last year. He's 2-1 with 16 innings pitched, but has a 6.61 ERA. On Saturday, they've been going with Logan Ross, a 6.2 lefty senior. 2-1 on the season, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts. 3.46 ERA and 13 innings pitched. And then Sunday's probably their best guy, Cleet Hartzog, a 6'1" right-hand senior. He was the Atlantic Coast Community College Player of the Year 2 years ago. He's 3-0 this year with a .54 ERA, 20 strikeouts to 2 walks in 16 innings. So they can shove on the mound. If you didn't get a theme there when all the names that I mentioned, there are 9 guys on this roster that are underclassmen. So they are very seasoned and they will be game. As a team, they're hitting .321 with 89 walks and 96 strikeouts. So that's pretty even. Their fielding percentage is right where ours is. 23 home runs on the year, but they're 20 for 26 on stolen bases, so they like to move. I think we're 6 for 8, somewhere in there. So keeping the guys off base will be very important. So yeah, I think on paper this looks like it might be a little bit better than what some might see when they just look at the schedule. But again, that was against lesser competition, so I think it'll be a fun weekend to watch, and hopefully they can get the boys can get some things figured out. So Chris, give us your preview of the midweek contest at number 9, Vandy.
Yeah, we got Vanderbilt. It's only a one-off. I'm still waiting for the series against these guys. Rumor has it one might have got canceled at a certain year, but hopefully we get that. Maybe even a home and home against it would be nice. I don't think the SEC will let it happen, but who knows? We do get the midweek this year. Vandy is 11-3, and the 3 losses are all at home, actually, which I had to double take because I thought I looked at it wrong. But no, they're 8-3 at home. So they've lost to Florida Atlantic. They lost to Dayton. The Dayton was a midweek. The Florida Atlantic was a Saturday, and the Gonzaga was a Sunday. So it's really no pattern to it. They've just lost 3 games at home. They have R.J. Austin. He's got 10 steals. He's at the top of their order. You got Calvin Hewitt, another 8 steals. So Josh mentioned how Troy's going to run. I guess Vandy does the same. Camden Kozol, 28 total bases already, hitting .358. So that's a bat to look out for. They are who they are. They're a consistent College World Series team. They've been top of the heap for a long time. And have we got to play them much? No, not really. We played them in the tournament that one year, head to head, right down there close to the end. But unfortunately, they beat us there in I guess it was the bottom of the 8th. But we got a chance now, right? The brand new Hoosier baseball. 8 years later, we'll play them again. I was checking out some of the odds because I know that Vandy is always a favorite. Believe it or not, they're only 2,200 to win the whole damn show. So remember when we were like at the beginning of the year, we were something like 15,000, if you remember. They're only 2,200. And they're only plus 215 to make the College World Series. So most people really feel like they're going to be one of the Omaha 8 or whatever you want to say. And this would be really a nice, measuring stick, I guess you want to call it. Obviously, we're not going to get their big Friday or Saturday guys, but there'll be some good competition. And, they have some really good pinch runners from what I heard. So we want to keep an eye out for that. And what's strange, the team that's playing Vandy this weekend when we're playing Troy is Illinois State. And they're going to go from Vandy to Bloomington, and we're just going to flip-flop. And Cass is going to give us the preview for Illinois State, which we'll play on Wednesday.
Yes, and before I do that, I'm going to backtrack a bit because we said the whole thing with the this weekend with Troy that whether we don't know what's going to happen. 15 minutes ago, the team tweeted out that there will be no game on Friday. It'll be a 2:00 Eastern time game on Saturday, and then a doubleheader Sunday with the first game starting at 11 and the second game approximately 30 minutes after the end of the first game. So since that's breaking
news live,
I figured I'd share it. Yes.
That we're recording.
Yes, which will come out way later.
It's live now.
Yes, it is.
Thanks for looking, Cass. You nailed it.
Yes. But with Illinois State, they are in the Missouri Valley Conference and are currently 5-5 on the year. Of note, they have a midweek loss to Northwestern. And then this last weekend, they swept Arkansas Pine Bluff. They were 20-30 on the year last year. And as Chris mentioned, they are playing at Vandy this weekend, which will be a tough ask. But this team, kind of like some of the others we've seen, man, can they swing the bat. They've currently got 8 hitters who are hitting 300 or above, 5 of them being starters. Big ones to watch for are Daniel Pasella, who's hitting 395. He's their left fielder. While he hasn't had too much home run power yet, he had 16 home runs as a freshman last year. So this guy has power, and he hasn't really shown it as much this year yet. So that's something to watch. And then we've got Noah Rabin, the designated hitter who has 4 home runs this year. He's hitting 364. And Luke Lawrence, I can't talk anymore, the third baseman, he's hitting 300 so far on the year, but could go up a little bit more. He did hit a bit higher last year. Shortstop, Luke Chang, is evidently a very, very strong defender, but he's also off to a phenomenal start at the plate, hitting 364. And JT Sokolov is hitting 381 on the year. So they've got some guys who are really hitting the ball well. And while they have overall played a weaker schedule, that's too many hitters above 300 to not make a note of it. As far as pitching goes, it's kind of hard to nail down who their midweek guys are going to be when they've played exactly one midweek so far. But based on expectations, good chance that we'll see at some point, whether it's starting or in relief, we'll see Tanner Perry, who's currently got a 7.56 ERA in 3 appearances. But that was kind of inflated by one bad appearance. We're still in that range where one bad appearance is going to screw with your numbers a bit. Has just a 241 batting average against in 8 1/3 innings. So overall is not pitching bad, just has one rough outing. The big one to watch for, whether or not he starts, is Joe Husick, who has a 0.64 ERA in 14 innings of work, 12 strikeouts to 5 walks, and has a 220 batting average against. He has only given up 1 earned run on the year. So he's going to be a big one to watch for if he pitches in the midweek. And then one who was listed as a possible midweek guy to start the season, who was expected to be possibly a closer type of role, Brandon, I'm going to guess Roche. This was one of the few that didn't have a pronunciation. He's been off to a pretty rough start with a 20.25 ERA in 3 appearances. But that's because, so he's thrown an inning and a third in those 3 appearances. All of those innings came in one game. He has 2 appearances of 0.0 plus innings pitched, including 1 earned run given up, which inflates the ERA drastically. So not sure what's going on there. He's off to a bit of a rough start. We may see him, we may not. But I definitely bet on Perry and Husick for to make an appearance at some point. Okay. that kind of wraps up our previews, but we did get a mailbag question from Brent Tonsoni asking, do you guys think Bothwell will eventually turn into the Sunday starter at some point, or do you think Mercer will continue going to him once Foley is done? Carl, what do you think?
Well, thank you for the question, Brent. Mercer and Glant really want good bullpen options. And this is also, and I say just Mercer and Glant, this has been the case pretty much since we've been following, Indiana baseball. Especially you go back to that 2015 team, which was loaded with bullpen arms. Bullpen, going back to, to the days of, Luke Harrison et al. You just had bullpen arms have always been a key part of the identity of Indiana baseball and Indiana pitching. So I think from that perspective, they liked what they were seeing out of Ty, and that first guy out of the bullpen is such an important role. And in fact, I think more generally seen as more important than a Sunday starter. Now, that being said, right now, as you're seeing, this team has the last week and so has struggled a little bit to cover the innings. So you take a look at this and you say, if you're only going to get one use out of Bothwell in a week, and he's capable of going 5 to 7 innings, if he piggybacks with Foley, who's capable of 4 to 6 innings, you're going to end up with more than 9. And I think it's getting to the point that the team really cannot afford to, if Foley's going 6 innings, for Ty to only throw 3. He's going to need to throw more innings. And the only way for him to throw more innings is for him to pitch in a different game. Does that mean Sunday starter? It might. It might not. It may mean something else. I don't know. But I think they're going to have to shuffle the deck a little bit and figure out how best to deploy him. It's just, given how well he's doing right now, I think limiting him to limiting the number of innings is an issue. Now, in a game in which you say you're on Saturday, and because of how the opponents are working Foley, if he can only get 3 innings in, then at that point, hey, using Bothwell makes sense, because you've got to cover 5 to 6 innings. So I'm not sure, but I think something may have to change simply because of the math and the need to cover as many innings. To the point that Josh brought up earlier, there were plans in place to have more of these innings covered by guys who have been hurt, and they are, I think, doing a pretty good job at developing some arms, but some other things, it's pitching, things don't always go to plan. And now it's okay, now that they've had a chance to see some of these guys and see, what they're going to do. And I look at, what they did with Ethan Phillips, the fact that he had been exclusively being used on Sunday, and then the fact that they went ahead and used him a couple innings in the midweek. They're trying to find ways to get guys more innings. And I don't see Ty, because of how he gets used, being used more than one time in a week. I think it's going to have to be in a single game. And the smart money in that is you just start him, because then, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen Ty go 7 innings before, so we know he's got the capability. All right.
There's something about him coming in after Connor, though, that really seems to work. And you heard the coach of the other team, Dallas Baptist, talking about it in the presser. Going from Connor to Ty, whatever it was, has really gotten to the back. You know what I mean? That's switching it up.
They have completely different profiles. You've got a guy, right-hander, big, tall right-hander throwing 96, 97. Then you got the left-hander that couldn't throw the ball straight if the world depended on it, moving all over the place. So that's just the reality of it. That is the perfect scenario. If you could do that 2 more days a week, have that kind of profile difference, yeah, I mean, that'd be perfect. That's not even the big schools, LSU, those schools can't put that together. They can't get those arms lined up, but that's what it is. That's why they work so well together.
Right. But you take that away, and now you might get a better 4 2/3 out of Ty than 6 of him starting. You don't know. Yeah. I wouldn't mess with what's working, is all I'm saying. I would not mess with Saturday until it doesn't work.
to what Carl's saying though, okay, you've got to compete, and I think it's obvious at this point those two guys are our best arms. So using them on the same game every weekend, you're tying one arm behind your back and not being able to use each.
And if that's the day you don't hit, you could end up losing that game.
Yep.
And
Oh,
then
no,
you
it's
get
not
swept.
Win. I'm not saying it's that. Nothing's a guaranteed win. You know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're going to get more out of Reisdorf. I think personally, Friday night, I think that being more of a blip on the radar than the norm. I think we're going to be getting a lot more out of him.
Kraft
And
and
I think we're going to
Holderfield.
get a lot more out of Grant. I think we're going to get a lot
Yep.
more out of Kraft. Give it
We've
some
seen it.
time. And there are some more of those innings that could be used too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kraft and Grant are also very different profiles from Reisdorf.
Right. So let them.
I'm sorry, from Foley. So,
But they're also different than Reisdorf. I wouldn't mess with what's working, is all I'm saying. I would leave him there and, let it roll.
all right. Well, so at this point, I guess the question is, how do we evaluate where the season is at so far? In a comparison to last year, my view of things is that we are seeing both a higher ceiling for this team, but to some degree, we're also seeing a lower floor. Josh, is the low floor something we should be concerned about?
I don't think so. There's just too much talent on this team. Like we have some guys that we didn't expect, like we talked about on the pitching side. We have guys that some are starting to get healthier that we might get back shortly. Still trying to eat up those innings, develop the younger guys' arms. Higher ceiling, yes, absolutely, because the 2 ranked wins already. That's good. I mean, we were off to a pretty good start that LSU year, but
Yeah.
they're beating good teams. The pitching is the issue, and like we talked about earlier, we knew Sennard wasn't going to pitch this year, and they made contingency plans with Bonner and Grable and Tyrai, and they didn't expect those guys not to be able to eat innings. So those are all veteran guys, proven veteran guys that can eat big innings. So that would change this whole last conversation we had if those guys were healthy. You just can't expect that it's going to happen. You just hope it doesn't happen 3 or 4 times, right? 3 or 4 guys at the same time, especially getting out of the gate when you don't know for sure what you've got. We've got 6 guys batting over 300 that are regular starters. That's not counting Wiggins, who I honestly think by the time Big Ten play rolls around, he's going to be in the lineup. I would, my opinion. I'm not getting any kind of info on that. That's what I'm seeing. Batting 301 as a team. So the offense is there. It just seems like Sunday and like the Fort Wayne game, when the offense doesn't show up, it doesn't show up. It's just not there. But those guys, you're hitting 301 as a team on the season against a really pretty good schedule, I would have to think. So the offense is there. Our walks and hit by pitch are about the same as our opponents, which I don't think last year we would have said that was anywhere close, right? We're striking out less than our opponents. 2-2 against ranked teams. They'll get the pitching figured out. I think that's the only thing holding this team back right now. But if you've paid attention lately, they're stretching certain guys out. Carl alluded to that with Ethan throwing. Julian has been pitching extended innings. I would guess that at some point he's going to be maybe a piggyback guy with one of the other guys. So that it's way too early to assess the team, I think, or take anything away from it. I'm encouraged because they're beating good teams now. How they can get blown out by some bad teams, I don't get it. But hey, it's too early. When we'll have this conversation again after the first week of the Big Ten gets played, and I think we'll have a lot better grasp on where we are as a team. So that's my take. What do you guys think?
Well, I think we may get a nice big hint on what's going to happen based on the adjusted schedule. So now that we know that there is no game Friday, that the series is going to start on Saturday, it'll be interesting to see what the decision is, because are they going to push? They going to stick with the same rotation and push Connor back to Sunday? I don't think they do. I think Connor Foley goes Saturday.
If you're going to move a guy, I know they're very strict about moving guys in the middle of the season. So this would be, you're spot on, Carl. This would be the right time you could make that move and to split them if you wanted to and keep them on schedule, or even give them an extra day. So yeah, no, I think you're right on that one.
Right.
So the
And then, of course,
doubleheader
it'll
was
also
Sunday,
just,
right? The two
Yeah.
games are on Sunday? Okay.
Yep.
So you're saying Connor would throw Saturday, but he'd be on regular rest, so it's kind of like Friday. But then you're going to put Ty in game 2 of Sunday?
I don't know. No, I'm curious to see how they do it. That's what I'm saying.
He said this will be very telling, because they kind of open up their options as to what they can do without pushing guys
Because
up.
you don't have to move Connor off his day.
You don't have to
Right.
move guys up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, the pitching wise, obviously we've had a hard time, and then you mentioned, Josh, that we got blown out by some bad teams. We haven't. We've lost to IPFW. We got blown out by good teams. You know what I'm saying? We got run ruled by good teams.
Well,
You know, I mean, who blew us out besides Arizona and Alabama? There's a good
that Fort Wayne game wasn't nearly as close as the final score.
True, but we were right there, one hit away from tying it.
Yeah, they were absolutely. Yes,
gosh, we played the 8th inning of that game. Okay, we didn't even get to play the 8th inning in some of these other games.
That's brutal.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy that we got run ruled 2 out of 3, but it is what it is.
And you beat two. You beat 2 ranked teams, and you've been run ruled twice.
And one of them in their stadium.
Yeah,
that wasn't a neutral game. That was Coastal's home park.
Yeah, it just doesn't make much sense. That's why I say it's hard to take anything away.
Yeah,
evaluate this team, because it's just extremes, both extremes. But I just, the talent's just there.
I can't see either. Like, I can't see us beating every ranked team we play, but also can't see us getting run ruled by all of them either. So it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's not as bad as you think. It's not as good as you think.
Yep.
But we definitely have innings to fill on the mound. And I think it's because injuries is one thing, right? I didn't even realize that we were looking for so many innings from Bonner and Grable, honestly. Hearing that today. Yeah, I did not realize that. But also, there's some other guys that I feel like we were thinking would have a bigger role. I know Moffitt, we were kind of looking at as someone who was going to fill some innings, and he really hasn't.
I don't think. Yeah, I would say yet. I would not flush that one yet.
That's what I'm saying.
I think the role they have carved out for him hasn't really materialized. I don't know if that makes any sense. But
because Glant was very high on Moffitt when we spoke with him. That could be another guy that could lengthen it out a little bit. But it's hard, right? You got these guys coming out there. A lot of them, they're on a new team. They're in a new environment. I like what you said, Josh, starting off the Big Ten season, could be a totally different vibe, right? But then you know what? 3 weeks later, it's going to be up and down the roller coaster. But the talent, I really like that comment. The talent should keep us in every game.
I think so.
Well, and my thing that I looked at, I was talking with my dad after, I think it was the Sunday game, and looking at 2014 as not a direct comparison, but that was probably arguably the more talented of I think that 2014 team was probably more talented than the 2013 team.
Absolutely.
And
yes, it was.
They got off to a crap start.
Yep.
And then they went on to dominate in Big Ten play and go 21-3.
What they lose, like I mean, they lost single digits that year, right?
In the Big
Lost
Ten?
15 overall.
That was
Lost
15.
lost
Okay,
3
I
in
didn't-
Big Ten, but most of those came early season.
Yeah,
I think we
I
were
didn't think
12 and 12 or like 10 and 10
Yeah.
after. So we didn't lose
Yeah.
too many once the Big Ten started. That's for
Yep.
sure.
Right. And that's one of the best teams to ever play at IU. And
Yeah.
they went.
Yeah,
they
were
had a
21
crap
and
start.
3 during the Big Ten.
Yeah.
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 That's
And
impossible in any conference.
right. And so if you had told any of us before the season started that at this point in time, 8-4 with 2 ranked wins.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
That's a great start.
Oh yeah.
And as much as I hate to say it, those run rules don't mean a thing. Functionally.
No,
You-
it could be. It
you
doesn't
would-
matter if it's
you-
1 run or 10.
2 innings they didn't
Or
have to
10.
pitch.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they wouldn't have hit in the ninth either, Carl.
But overall,
2 total.
Yeah.
But outside
Yeah,
of the
Oh,
outside of the psychology part of
Yep,
it,
absolutely. Yep.
in the scheme of wins, losses, RPI, metrics,
Yep.
those run rules don't matter.
what's
So-
funny is our RPI went up 60 points, getting run ruled twice for the weekend.
Right.
We were in the 80s,
What?
then we were in the 20s.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yep.
Really?
We went up
Yes.
another spot today.
Well,
Okay.
they were both undefeated when we played
Right.
them. The
Dude,
first two,
yeah. Dude.
one of them was a win, but the first 2 games were against undefeated teams.
Yeah, that makes
It
sense.
also didn't hurt that Baylor swept Oral Roberts that same weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and Coastal beat who'd they beat? They beat another
Oh, they
ranked
beat
team.
somebody, yeah.
yeah. So the point is there were a lot of wins happening against teams in the schedule, and this early in the season, that can sway things really quick.
Oh, yeah.
So
Like
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 what we
you
were
were
talking about last
Weekend.
week, we were in the middle of the podcast and the team dropped 10 points.
Temple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and just
I looked it up before the podcast, and Cass looked it up in the middle of the podcast, and there was like an 11 rank difference.
and more evidence of early RPI funkiness. Number 9 Vanderbilt has an RPI of 123. So
Yes.
like it's still early on RPI.
I was gonna say by the end of the year that won't be
Well,
anywhere near.
Right, because this is what the SEC does.
Oh, yeah.
At
Yes.
a conference
The way
like
they schedule.
this,
Yep.
they can early season they schedule easy, so they rack up a bunch of wins,
Yep. 'cause
and
you
then
know
they
you're
all
gonna
play each other,
beat
and
the
that
crap
gets
out
them
of each
there.
other.
Yeah,
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely.
and they bank all those opposing
Yep.
wins,
Same-
which is
same
to the
thing
point
in
that Chris
football.
said, which is why the likelihood the SEC is going to let hardly any of these teams
Yeah.
play a bunch of series against a team like
Yeah.
Indiana
Nah.
is not
No way.
likely.
That's
I
in
would
the
like
game.
it. Oh, it'll never happen.
Nope.
I'm sure that the SEC commissioner has been on the phone to Missouri asking them why did they schedule Northern Kentucky? Oh wait, maybe not. Okay.
Ooh.
Hey, they're
They need to
they're
be worried
still-
about the Mastodons.
I was gonna say Missouri baseball's still doing better than their basketball. So
Oh,
Winless
kind of like baseball then. Here,
yeah,
at
but
IU.
Mizzou basketball's on a different level of no SEC wins.
True.
Oh
Yep.
boy,
Ooh,
0?
I didn't know that.
That's been the talk around here. So
Whoa.
Yep.
Oh, boy. So Saturday, what do we got? 11 a.m. Or that's Sunday?
2
That's
2
Sunday.
p.m. Yeah, it's still going to be
Saturday
raining in the
is
morning.
11.
Yeah, it's still going to be
Sunday's
the raining
11.
in the morning. Yep. So the
Saturday
Sunday's going to
at
be the
2.
nice day.
Sunday
And-
11.
Yeah, and that will
Amen.
we'll have 2 games.
All right, we got a sweep.
Oh.
Come on.
brunch at the park.
Yes. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up now. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Hoosier Baseball. For more on Indiana University baseball, hit up iubase.com. For Josh Bennett, Chris Feeney, and Cassidy Palmer, I'm Carl James. See you at the BART.